So you want to become a cardiac sonographer? Let me show you how. Now, if you've clicked this video, chances are you're probably from TikTok and you saw my day in the life of a cardiac sonography videos and you got some questions. Now, before we start, what is cardiac sonography? Based off the name alone, a lot of people, when I've told them my job title, assume that I'm a doctor, which most of the time I don't correct. But cardiac sonography is using ultrasound to look at the heart, which is what these pretty images are. We look at structure, we look at function, the atria, contractility, ventricles, blood flow, regurgitation, pathology, stenosis, diastology. There's so much that goes into a cardiac or echocardiogram, a TTE, a scan of the heart, that we need to, one, know what we're doing, know why we're doing it, and what we can do to help that patient or help the cardiologist help that patient. The most asked question that I received, and is the first point of this conversation, were what were my pathways, qualifications, and what did I study at uni? How did I get in? What can I do to emulate what you did to get in as well? Bit of context, I'm currently living in Melbourne, but I'm from Sydney originally. When I was in Sydney, I did medical science at Sydney Uni. After 2 years, I dropped out and I went to civil engineering instead, thinking that was going to be, dramatically different and better for me. Realized it wasn't. I ended up working at the airport for a whole year, sidetracked. I came back to medical science, finished the whole thing, and this is when I realized that this job was for me. In my last semester of my last year, funnily enough, I didn't even know cardiac sonography was a thing. Because I know a lot of you people will see it and you'll be like, oh, you can scan the heart? Same thought. I love filmmaking and I love creativity and photos and videos, and I thought, yeah, ultrasound makes sense to me. I was thinking about just doing general ultrasound because that's all I knew existed. I ended up speaking to one of my professors about one of the pathways, and he was like, hey, your grades are good. Why not get into cardiac? It's a bit of a challenge, but it's really fulfilling. And I was like, cardiac sonography? He's like, yeah, you can scan the heart in the same way that you scan the normal body. Except there is a lot that goes into it, and he was definitely right about that. This point is probably the most important point, and it's something I continue telling people. When you finish uni, the first thing you want to do is become a cardiac sonographer. You want to find a placement straight away. You call cardiology clinics. You are you're so pedantic about just jumping in, because I know that was me. Believe me when I tell you, and this is our second point, the best cardiac sonographers were the ones who were cardiac physiologists first. Quick explanation, cardiac physiologists are, the electrical side of the heart, ECGs, we do blood pressure monitors, and it's so important for your clinical experience before you jump into that next role. I haven't told many people this, but this was my first day as a cardiac physiologist. I was thinking, I'm better than this. I know I'm going to be such a good cardiac sonographer. I deserve a position straight away. I don't have to be doing this job. This isn't what I want to do. My ego was so high, and I'm so glad it got humbled so quickly. And I actually learned the wisdom of that first year of being a cardiac physiologist and doing those ECGs and getting whipped around, and I loved it. It gave me the exact skills and the exact mind frame, the character, the way that everything that I do now as a cardiac sonographer that is efficiently well is because of what I learned when I was a cardiac physiologist. So the first advice or tip that I'm going to give you is that when you graduate, rather than try and find a placement in cardiac sonography, which is realistically kind of hard anyways without any clinical experience, start as an ECG tech. Start applying as a cardiac physiologist, because one of my trainers ended up telling me this. Get your foot in the door and you're in the world of cardiology. Even as an ECG tech. I know electrical, plumbing, two different worlds, but get in. Start learning. And this is what happened when I started working. I was being an ECG tech. I was still doing things on the side. Every now and then I'd pop into the sonographer's room and be like, hey, can I have a little wiggle around? Can I practice? Can I make sure my scanning's still up to scratch? Hey, what's that? Can you explain this to me? You're in a cardiac environment. There's cardiologists on site, knowledge, resources. It is such a beneficial environment for you to be in if that's where you want to set yourself up. So, if your ego was as big as mine, bring it down a notch. Know that everything that you're learning is going to eventually benefit you, and take your environment as like a blessing, honestly. Best thing I could have ever done. Step 1, become a cardiac physiologist. What does training look like when you first start? I've done all your advice and I've listened to what you've said, And I've done my pre-courses, and I've finally got a cardiac sonography position. And I've started studying what is my training going to start looking like. The first thing that you might possibly and most potentially feel is you might feel extremely overwhelmed. If you've never done this realistically, you got to start a whole new skill from scratch. And I know you've been learning the theory, but using your muscles and hand-eye coordination and problem solving, there is a lot. You're going to feel overwhelmed, but it's fine. The best advice I can give you when you first start is be confident. Even if you're bad, even if your images are rubbish, have confidence. The greatest thing of having confidence, not ignorance, confidence, is that sometimes you can be scanning a normal patient, having a great day. All your patients are great. The next day, you might have someone extremely tough, tight windows, the ultrasound probe isn't picking up anything, there's a lot of artifact, and immediately the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose your confidence. You're going to have such a bad, rough scan that it's just like, what am I doing? I don't know how to get a perfect image. I know what a good image is supposed to look like, and I got this instead. It must be me, surely. It has to be me, because I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing. Don't let that voice affect you, because what's going to happen is, when you lose your confidence, your scanning gets worse. Your self-belief of it's actually the patient and their rib cage and spacings and fat pads, it's them and not me. Because as soon as you get that thought in your head, your scanning quality declines, you start second guessing yourself, you start mismeasuring things. It is a downward spiral that you don't want to be involved in. So fortunately enough for me, I always glaze myself. I'll be confident with what I say, but I was always like, yep, good job. Yeah, I killed that today. I could have done this better, but overall, I know I did a good job. Have that consistent feedback with yourself in a positive way. And even if you are partnered up with, someone who's training you and is highly critical and not understanding that they were at that stage once, don't let that affect you. Don't take that in. So have confidence, and you're going to slowly start getting better every single day. You're going to start knowing how to change the gain controls and when and what and where to position. Even getting creative, I can find something. There's something interesting here. I'm going to do something creative to get exactly the measurement or what pathology I'm trying to show to the cardiologist. Go outside the box. Confidence, and just do whatever you want to do. At the end of the day, you are the one answering the question. So how you get there is completely up to you. Obviously follow the AC guidelines, if that's what you're required to do. But there's no set way of right and wrong. There's off axis or not on axis. That's a different situation. But there's nothing wrong with doing things your way to, develop and become your own unique kind of sonographer. And just have fun. Have fun with it, man. These are the skills that you need to become a great cardiac sonographer and to also really stand aside from everyone else. The first is that left-handed scanning is superior on a Monday and Tuesday. On a Thursday and Friday, right-handed scanning is where it's at. Being ambidextrous, being able to use your left and right hand at the same time, is one of the greatest skills that you can have as a cardiac sonographer, and I'll explain why. Based off the situations and clinical settings that I've been in, where I was just so blessed that I learned with both when I first started. Normally, you're going to be a left-handed scanner if your trainer's a left-handed scanner. That's just how it works. I was fortunate enough to be with people who are both, and instead of moving the bed around and have the senior accustomed to one-handed scanning that I'm used to, even if it's opposite to them, I molded myself around to what they do. And because I was doing in between left and right-handed scanning all the time, I learned both at the start very, very efficiently. I once got sent up to cath lab. I think a patient had a ablation or a pacemaker inserted or whatever it was, and I wheeled it up, and guess what? The bed in the hospital was completely put against the wall. There's no way that the machine could have been on the other side, so left-handed scanning was out of the question. The patient also couldn't move, and they were on their one side. Right-handed scanning was the only way to go about it. And I was so fortunate and thankful enough to be like, how was I going to do this scan had I not had the skill set of the other arm? Same thing, I've had the same situations happen where based on where the position of the bed is, if the patient's in a coma or asleep or in a certain position, you need to be able to apply yourself in a very tactile and versatile way. The situation and environment should never be greater than what you're capable of doing. Change yourself, apply yourself, and just get it done. I've seen situations where there's even seniors or people who've been sonographers for a long time. Patient has broken their collarbone, or the bed's the other way around, and hey, you have to scan the other way. I've seen them just look at the patient and be like, how am I gonna make this work? What do I do? Move aside, I'll do it. I'm the one sorting this out. So when you first start, try to learn left and right-handed scanning. And again, when I started learning right-handed scanning at the start, it made my left-handed scanning better. It's natural. Your brain's just gonna cross over. Make sure you use both hands and apply yourself in the best way possible, because there is never only one way of doing something correctly. The second skill you need to be a great sonographer is an ability to apply yourself. Be creative. There is no one way of getting an image. And you'll learn this when you start doing extremely difficult or challenging or just complicatedly weird patients. Now, if you're a left-handed scanner, you're like, okay, cool, parasternals are up here, bang, there's nothing there. Where's my heart? Where's my image? Especially when you start training, you're gonna be used to the heart being in a certain way, in a certain position, and it's not there anymore. I've had parasternal long axis images be all the way towards the subcostals. Or you put the probe on a parasternal long axis and it looks like an apical 3. That makes no sense to what I'm used to. Large patients, for example, the amount of times that we've scanned them and nothing. Roll over, moving their shoulder around, inclined position, nothing's working. Put them flat on their back, clear as day. Skinny patients with small rib cages, good luck trying to see everything, and it's a slippery slope flying around the ribs. They're gonna feel it, you're gonna feel bad that you're hurting them. It's just a whole mess. Sometimes you gotta catch the image on a floating rib. You gotta pull a rib down. You gotta be creative. There's so many ways that you need to be able to apply yourself, because everyone's body is different. No two people are the same, have the same body composition, images, the way ultrasound interacts with their body, etc. You need to be able to apply yourself. You need to be able to think on the spot. Learn to think on your feet. Apply yourself. We're doing real-time imaging. What I'm seeing is reflective of what I'm doing. So for example, if an image is foreshortened, if I'm off axis, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this to fix the image. I know what it's supposed to look like. So you're constantly adjusting, changing, moving, tilting, breathing in, out, whatever you need to do to make sure you get that image, apply yourself. Another essential skill to have, especially in this field, is drive and ambition. You want to do this for money? It will never work out. You want to do this because of the cool title that it sounds, or because of the fact that you got into something that, it's hard to get into and it gave you a little bit of an ego boost? You will never succeed or be one of the greats or really develop your understanding of cardiac knowledge for the right reasons, and you will just always fall behind. You always fall short. Trust me when I say that being able to be driven and be passionate about what you're doing for more than superficial or materialistic or financial reasons is what's going to get you there. You need to have this love of pathology, anatomy, the heart itself. I love the heart so much. My brain explodes when I think about all the different ways that certain pathologies can affect different chambers of the heart. That's making me think, okay, well, what's happening in the next chamber? Well, if this pressure's up, what's happening there? There's so much that's going on. You gotta love it. You gotta be ambitious about it. It has to feed you. Again, you can't just be simply just doing a scan and, I hope this is okay for the cardiologist. No. You need to love what you do, because you're gonna end up. Last week, okay, I found 2 VSDs, which are ventricular septal defects. And I was searching for them. I was so adamant, and the thing is, how I first found out about it, I saw a flick of color going between the muscular wall. I was like, oh, what was that? And I was like, I got excited. I became ambitious. I was like, I need to interrogate this to the fullest capacity, even if in the end I show that there was nothing there. But I'm gonna make sure I show something, if there is anything there. Eventually, I ended up finding a great VSD, took the patient's blood pressure. The doctor was a little bit more than concerned, and we dealt with that situation accordingly because I found it. Now imagine in the other case where I wasn't ambitious and I was just doing a normal scan and I flew past it. Comes up for a frame or a millisecond of color if you're not really thinking about what you're doing. But the point is that being driven and ambitious is it's really gonna shape the way you apply yourself when it comes to your scanning. You're really searching for the best possible case scenario to make sure the doctor completely understands what's being told. If you don't have that passion, I'm sorry to say, you're never gonna succeed to the same extent as those that do. So what does the life of a cardiac sonographer even feel like? What does it mean? Every day I come into work and I know that there is a list of problems for me to deal with. The day that there's a 19, 20-year-old patient who has beautiful imaging and no pathology, blessing, holy grail. But other than that, I know that there is a difficult day ahead of me, in which every patient is unique. One might have aortic stenosis, ischemic heart disease, regionals, might find some, I don't know, some cool GLS patterns, whatever it is. I need to make sure that every day I'm applying the same level of care so that each patient gets the best treatment possible. Your day or your life as a cardiac sonographer in itself is helping people, and in a very unique way. And it's not just a job. You know, the times I've had patients where we sit down, we speak, they're real people too. You need to be able to care, have those conversations, make them feel, at least when they walk out of that door, they're happy and smiling, something to give back. So it's important that, I guess, the way you feel and the way that you want others to feel as well is very essential to your job if you want to do it right. You can be a worker, you can clock in and out, but there is something so special about making other people feel better, as well as making them feel better from the service that you've provided. On top of the doctor who's happy with what you've done, it's just, dude, that is the kind of person you have to be for this role. Your future as a cardiac sonographer, what is it going to look like? Because you're a trainee right now, or you haven't even started. Tell me the pathways. What's going to happen when I get in, when I graduate, etc., etc. Right now, I'm trainee. Okay, I'm in my first year and I'm about to hopefully graduate by the end of next. And I've already started thinking about a few options, and I'm going to tell you what you can possibly do. Usually, with the company that I work with, we second half of the year start doing stress training, which is the same ultrasound scan. Sometimes it's simplified, except the patient jumps on the treadmill, jump off, and you quickly get the heart to look for any regional abnormalities, ischemic heart diseases, etc., etc. It's a good skill to have. It's great because it allows you to start doing stress lists. The next step up that usually a lot of people get into is pediatrics, pediatric cardiac sonography. We look at the heart constantly flipped up and inverted, and pediatrics is the complete other way around. You're looking at children's hearts, infants, sometimes towards 17, 18, or maybe 16, I don't know what the pediatric limit is. They start looking normal, but the young infant hearts it's a different world out there. You're learning all these new skills and images from scratch, and it's an interesting thing. So you've got to start using Z-scores, you've got to interrogate the walls differently because, congenital defects that are prominent after birth. It's great. That's definitely what I want to go into. But you can definitely get into pediatrics if you love children. If you want to give back, if you care in those aspects, and maybe even if you just want to create a challenge. Pediatric cardiac sonography is a great outlet in terms of once you've graduated, and the future you can definitely follow. Another possibility when you graduate as a cardiac sonographer is that maybe your shoulder hurts. Maybe you're sick of scanning, and maybe you simply love the passion of teaching others. You could become an educator. I love teaching people because it helps me learn, and there's this reciprocal understanding, and then they get excited when they finally figure it out, and it's just very fulfilling. When you're an educator, especially after you've become accredited, you can start doing conferences, you can do presentations, you can speak about certain pathologies in a certain way. You're simply teaching people about the thing that you're most passionate about. And I would love to do that one day, eventually. Maybe with my shoulder bust out, both of them. But being an educator is something to me that's really special. Whenever we've gone to conferences and we've seen some of these educators speak who told me, hey, I was a sonographer scanning just like you. I remember when I was a trainee. And being able to see them in a room give, new data, new research, and just they transformed their role from just simply scanning and made it something unique and also relevant to the modern times. So again, education is something that's great. I remember when I was first training, one of my trainers resonated so well with me that from his actions and how he made me learn, I wanted to become like him. I just loved how passionate he was about the thing that I was also passionate about. And I understood why he did what he did. So again, if you love teaching people, education is a great pathway to go down through. So I hope that was an informative intro. I know it was a bit lighthearted, but moving forward, I really want to get into some serious educational content. Cardiac cases, pathologies, all these things that I have planned. And I want you guys to know that this is going to be, again, our journey together. We're going to be really learning together. Whether you're a trainee finding a placement, whether you're a uni graduate, whether you're already a cardiac sonographer and no one has helped you in the same way to really better your skills, I got you. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any things that you want to learn about or things that you're struggling to understand, I can make a video about it and we can go through it together. That's enough from me, and I hope you guys subscribe and like and do what you got to do, and I really look forward to the coming content.